Mark gets a lead on where the dig site might be. He goes to meet the guy. He blacks out once again. He wakes up on the top of a building with most of the guys dead. Has no idea how they got to that point. He says to Steven, "Tell Mark to free me." That Khonshu's torment forced Harrow to do it, and that he owes his victory to Khonshu. Khonshu's stone is imprisoned inside a wall in which there are other statues. That's not really clear. But surely they were imprisoned for reasons as Khonshu. What happened to the sky by Steven and Khonshu put a strain on Steven, and he was knocked out. Layla tries to revive him, and as she's doing that, a few of Harrow's men show up to get rid of them, but she is able to dispose of them by shoving a flare into their car. Steven wakes up and they head off to the tomb. Layla mentions that they are going to need Mark now. Steven refuses because he and Mark made a deal that when Mark was done with Khonshu, Mark would disappear for good. Layla is surprised because they made a deal without telling her anything. She asks Steven, so he was just going to leave her life, and Mark didn't think if she must be made aware of that. Steven points out that Mark has already disappeared from her life, and she agrees with him. Mark is arguing with Steven because he thinks it is a suicide mission, and without Khonshu, there's no more suit, no more healing, and no more power. Plus Mark is better equipped to fight Harrow's men, so he wants to take the body from Steven in this part, but Steven doesn't say anything. At the dig site they notice that nobody is there, and they start poking around it, and trying to find any supplies they might need. Mark begs Steven one last time to let him take over the body, but Steven refuses again. He tries to tell Steven that's for Layla, but Steven still refuses. And he points out if Steven is in love with his wife, but Steven walks away without letting Mark finish the sentence. The fact is Steven is in love with her and thinks she's perfect. Steven then tells her why Mark filed for divorce, and he thinks she should know that Khonshu was planning on taking her as his avatar if he died. Layla says that she doesn't need protection, she just needs honesty. It seems that she also loves Steven. At that moment, they both finally head into the tomb, and when they do, they are surprised by what they see. Steven is a giant Egypt nerd. He starts finding out the fact that there are some of the first people to step foot into this tomb. Layla draws something in Arabic on the stone, and she says it's for her father. She tells him about her father, the archaeologist, who was on a mission and would have loved to be here. And to her father, it was a dream worth dying, trying to find it. Steven says that her father will be positively beaming now, seeing her standing in the proof of it. They start heading deeper into the tomb, and what they are looking for is Ammit's prison of stone, a shabti. It's basically the same thing that Khonshu was put in. In the room, Layla notices that there are empty bullet casings, and she wondering what would they be shooting at. They find out that is a maze, and there are 6 paths. Also, that's whole structure is a symbol of the Eye of Horus. It is the royal symbol, and her final avatar was a pharaoh. Steven points out that the Eye of Horus is also the eye of the mind, representing the 6 senses' 6 points. So they got the eyebrow, that denotes thoughts. The pupil is the sight. The others are hearing, smell, touch, and the long line ending in a spiral is the tongue. It's revealed that the avatar would be Ammit voice, so they will find her in the tongue part. Now they have a map, and they have to find it. In the next room, it looks like there is an ancient Egyptian autopsy table in the middle, and what's concerning is the fact that the table has fresh blood on it. There is also blood all over the floor, leading to the entrance to another room, and they don't really want to follow that trail of blood, so they need to find another way in. And that's when Steven notices that there's an opening above them. He heads up there to look around, starts geeking out over all the things he's seeing. They then hear a gun go off and screams from the distance, and something starts dragging a body into that room. Steven hides, and he's safe already, but Layla is the one who truly is in danger. Approaches the table, an ancient Egyptian monster, or a jackal to protect the temple. The temple guard starts dissecting the body right near her, and they do not want to run into it. Unfortunately for Layla, as she's trying to avoid it, she ends up knocking into something, and alerting that somebody else is there. The guard then goes nearly to Steven's place. Steven screams, so the monster going to kill him, but Layla throws a bottle in the wall to distract the monster. Steven tells her to run, and he pushes down a bunch of items to crush it. Layla is able to escape, but the two end up splitting up. She is trying to find her way to Ammit. And she walks on the edge of the rocks, but she is followed by another monster. She is pulled inside, and fights with it, until escapes with the guard's hand. The guard attacks her again, and she is able to hurt the guard, by shoving a flare into its eye, and throwing it into a pit of despair. All of this is seen by Harrow, who is on the other side of the pit. Harrow can't get to her, because there is no bridge, so there is no threat. He starts talking to her, but she doesn't want to listen to him, until he brings up her father, by saying "my little scarab," that is what her father called her. And that ropes her back into this conversation. Harrow says that her father would be so proud of her if he knew that his daughter was among the first to confirm for the world what he always believed, and that the Egyptian gods walk among us. He points out that the scales achieve their judgment by revealing to him moments of sin and pain, and her husband is in agony, more pain than anyone could bear. Cause Mark still hasn't told her the truth, which Harrow read his scales, and the scales do not lie. Harrow starts putting the pieces down, and Layla is able to put the puzzle together. That the thing Mark wasn't telling her was that he was the mercenary at the dig site the day her father was murdered. She feels betrayed and hurt that Mark was the one who did it, but she doesn't want to show Harrow that, so she leaves. She goes deeper into the tomb, where hopefully we'll be able to confront Mark about this. Harrow then gets word from his men that they found another way. Stephen had found his way into the tomb. As he is geeking out, he is visited by Mark in a reflection, where Mark confronts him about the fact that Stephen kissed his wife. Also the fact that everything Stephen said was accurate about why he's been pushing her away. And that was unexpected from Stephen. Stephen then starts reading the hieroglyphics on the tomb. It figures out the sarcophagus that they are looking at must be holding Alexander the Great, and Alexander the Great must have been Ammit's avatar. Stephen also knows that the Egyptians would have hidden Ammit's Ashapti somewhere that wasn't easy to find, since Alexander the Great was the avatar, and he spoke for her. Stephen thinks that there is a chance the Ashapti might be in the mouth, so he then rips open the bandages and breaking the jaw. Eventually, he finds it. When Layla walks in, she finds Stephen celebrating the fact that he was able to locate it, but she is in no mood to celebrate. She demands to talk to Mark, and she needs to get answers to what Harrow told her, so Stephen tags Mark in. The story that Mark has is he didn't kill her father, but he was one of the mercenaries. Mark says that his partner got greed, and he executed everyone at the dig site. He tried to save her father, but he couldn't save him. She says that he brought a killer right to him, and he says yes. Mark also explained that his boss also shoots him, leaving him for dead where Khonshu found and saved him. When Mark was all better, he went to go find Layla and tell her what happened. But he couldn't bring himself to do this. And what upsets Layla the most is the fact that the only reason they got married was Mark felt guilty about what he did to her father. But they don't have time to discuss it anymore, because they hear Harrow's men coming. Layla goes to look for an exit, and Mark tasks himself with holding Harrow's men off. Harrow walks in and sees that Mark has the Ashapti. He tells him that he needs to hand it over, and it looks like for a second Mark is going to, and that's when he just starts killing all of Harrow's men. Harrow is done dealing with Mark's crap, so he pulls out a gun and shoots him twice without the protection of Khonshu. And he says that he can't save anyone who won't save themselves, sending him falling into a pool of water that quickly fades into darkness the further Mark drifts away. Then cuts to an Indiana Jones-like film, starring a character named Dr. Stephen Grant instead of Indiana Jones, which is revealed to be playing on a television in a psychiatric hospital. It's revealed that everything in the insane asylum Stephen interacted with before. The bingo caller is the gold-painted man and holding a hat, which is the same that Stephen made sure people were throwing tips into for him. And the patient who is trying to solve a Rubik's Cube is the same cube we saw Stephen solving while trying to stay awake. The orderly who is handing the food to patients, the same person we saw as one of Harrow's followers, posing as an agent and arresting Stephen. And we see Donna, who was previously Stephen's boss at the museum. She holding a toy that seems to be a scarab and hoping that the bingo caller calls some O's. Also the clock that is seen behind Donna appears to use Khonshu's staff as one of the hands on the clock. The orderly who is pushing around a cart with cupcakes is the man who we met when Mark and Layla were going to meet Mogart. And Beck's cupcake card connects to Steven and Mark's hilarious chase with Harrow's men while in a cupcake van. Additionally, one of the patients is sketching a bird who appears to have the same head as Khonshu. We can spot a goldfish in a bowl, which matches up to Steven's one-fin wonder fish Gus. And the orderly who talks to Mark about sitting in his favorite spot. The same person we saw as one of Harrow's followers, posing as an agent alongside the woman. Layla is putting up postcards, just like the one Steven had in his apartment. We can see that she's eating, like she did when she was getting her fake passport. And she says, "I won." Mark is stunned, and calls Steven in the mirror, but gets nothing. When he falls out of his wheelchair, he is clutching a Moon Knight action figure, and his leg is tied to the chair, like Steven tying himself to his bed. When he goes to talk to the therapist, surprisingly the therapist is Arthur Harrow. Harrow tries to explain that Mark had a mental break, and that his obsession with the fictional film entitled Tomb Buster led him to struggle to differentiate between what is real and fiction. The painting that Mark spots matched the place where Steven woke up before meeting Harrow and his followers for the first time. Harrow explains that the film makes a meal out of a plot about a lunar god with an eccentric villain and an explorer of sorts at its helm. Mark also notices Harrow's cane and slippers, which we saw Harrow was using and wearing. Everything seems to be pointing to the fact that Mark made up all of this in his mind, and he's simply crazy. But the point is Mark doesn't believe, clearly remembers Harrow shooting him. He has no plans of staying there any longer than he has to, so Mark tries to escape. When he runs, we finds that the lamps moves like Harrow's scale. As he's doing so, he is chased, but he manages to sneak into a side room. And he finds, in that room, is a sarcophagus. Somebody inside, and screaming for someone to let him out. And Mark does that, only to find that the person he let out is Steven Grant. Now instead of the two sharing a body, they are staring at each other. Both men are relieved to see each other. And they also can't figure out how this is even possible, they just need to figure out a way out. They also find another sarcophagus, somebody inside that is screaming hard for someone to let him out, but they don't really care. The two run out of the room, but they find, like an Egyptian hippo god, waving at them.